joining me today. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. The first thing I want to get into with everything is just getting to know what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, so live in New York still, but recently just been teaching, still traveling with the dance convention. I work for Dance One, now it's called, and I've been auditioning. I'm in final callbacks for two different things that are happening in the new year, so that's very exciting.
Cool.
But yeah, it's kind of slow and steady pace going up into the new year for me.
How do you feel when you get in those places of it being slow and steady?
It's a little nerve-wracking, especially with like my visa and everything. I was actually talking about it with my parents the other day. I have a year and a half left on my second 3-year visa. So it's like making sure that I have enough to go through for my third time going around. And then, I mean, with anything, it's kind of just like, all right, when's the next thing going to come? When am I going to have a steady job or whatnot? But being with the new agency that I'm with now is a lot better just because I know that like things are going to start rolling when the new year comes around.
You have that pressure of living in another country and trying to make a living, essentially, but you also have the added pressure of having a visa that you need to renew in the new year or whenever that comes. So like, how is having all those things on your plate been like?
It's been hard, but I've gotten used to it. Like I said, this is going to be my third time going around. So it's easier because I know what to expect. The dollar amount never gets easier because that is always very, very expensive. But the process is always the same, and I have really great lawyers, so I know that like they're never going to lead me astray. But yeah, it is always something that I have to keep thinking about in like the background of me when I'm doing all of my jobs and everything like that.
So like even taking it back before all of this, because we know each other from high school, like what was the initial reason for you to go pursue dance in the States specifically?
Yeah, so when we graduated, there wasn't that much like dance opportunity here in Toronto to kind of like make it big, I should say. Like there's always been a big like film and TV era within Toronto and then also Vancouver, but to like do the big dances, work with the big like television networks and everything like that, there's just not that much like opportunity. And working with like the large amounts of choreographers and people that are working with the big artists and stuff like that, they don't really come to Toronto. And even I think when we were in high school and whatnot, they had like the Juno Awards and all that stuff that actually happened in Toronto. But when we graduated, those weren't things that were happening. So it was an easier way into the dance industry to just go over to the US. And I mean, New York is only an hour flight away, so it's easy to come back if there's ever anything big that happens here, which there has been since I've been over at the US. It's been 8 years now, and I think they've filmed 2 or 3 out of the zombie movies. They filmed those here, and then I also got the opportunity to do Sneakerella, which filmed here in Toronto. So there are some things, but like the big dance jobs are always happening in the US, either New York, LA, Atlanta, Chicago, kind of.
I would even say big, just like more frequent.
More frequent, yeah. Yeah.
You know, which is, I think that's annoying. And like, I had a lot of dance people on this podcast, and just speaking about that is like, how do we bring that talent, or not bring the talent, but keep the talent here in Toronto and like bring that, you know, those big productions. But it's kind of just like, it's a little bit of a two-way streak where we have to kind of be in the middle. Like, we either have to stay here and they come to us, or, you know what I mean?
We have to go over there,
the annoying part, But even talking about like dancers and going to post-secondary, was it really a big thing for you to do post-secondary dance? Or was that just like, what was the whole, I know you said there was more opportunity in the States to do that, but like why just do dance post-secondary when you've done it for like a billion years beforehand, you know?
Yeah, for me, moving out there, like I don't think I would have been ready to just like jump into the dance industry as an 18-year-old. I am an only child too, so it was like I feel like I would have gotten lost and not known what to do, where to go, who to ask for, who to talk to. Whereas like I feel like my 4-year program kind of helped me. I had a big community. They kind of drove me into like the right people to talk to, the right connections to build. And like you also, with being out there, you know what classes are going to be right for you. You know what classes are going to be right to take, and the right people that is going to basically help you move along into becoming that professional dancer. I know as like an 18-year-old moving out there, I physically or like mentally, emotionally, I wasn't ready just to like jump in there. Mm-hmm.
Did you ever consider teaching dance for
I
that year?
did. I did. And I don't think if I took a gap year between high school and going into uni, I don't think I would have ever like made that jump and like going
Mm.
in. So I feel like for me, going right away was so much more beneficial for me. And I still do teach. I taught for about 2 years while I was in uni, and then I teach now on the
Yeah.
outside. So it always is still like something that I'm going back to as like a something to keep my creative juices flowing. And then also I love
Sustainability.
and sustainability. Yep, keeping the dollar rolling in.
Yeah, exactly. I guess we can get into that because what you just said about like, going to school right after high school and then having
Yeah.
that community to help you get to where you need to go. You're done high school now.
Hmm.
We're 27. We're full grown, not full grown adults, but we're more than ripe
We're there.
now. So, where do you find time to grab things like that and say, I can't have someone push me anymore? Like, I need to do it myself. Like, has that been a challenge for you?
Honestly, I think,
Stepping away from that?
yeah, I think honestly moving away right when I moved, just because I like my community's here. I had my parents here, my friends from high school. I mean, we literally grew up together from dance and high school. So it's like me actually moving away. I didn't have that, so it was kind of like I had to find all that again on my own. I didn't have the security to fall back on my family or like my community in terms of like, okay, I was alone in New York City. I didn't know what to do, so I was just going to sit at home. No, you're there for 4 years. You got to figure it out. You got to go make your connections or people. And with being in the program that I was, it also helped me gain that confidence, that a community that I could build because you're with those people for 4 years, right? So it helped me being able to step out of the box of finding my place in New York and being a dancer in New York and everything, and then find my community and my people that are there.
Can you get into that a little bit? Like, explaining, like, what you went through in university, like obviously with your roommates, let's just say, the
Yeah.
classes you took, just
Hmm.
living in New York. Like, give us all the details of that experience.
Yeah. So when I auditioned for Pace, I actually met one of the four roommates that I had my freshman year, which in Canadian terms would be first year. And we got to board in one of the dormitories like that whole weekend that we were doing auditions and seeing the campus.
Mm.
And we kind of just gained a group of like 4 or 5 girls that were going to be in our program. And funny enough, I stayed in like a suite type situation, and it was three and a two. So we ended up getting like a five suite for five girls that were in my program. And that's what we lived with my freshman year. And it was awesome.
Compact.
Compact, but it was so fun because like we were all going through the same things together. We were in a lot of the same classes, doing a lot of the same pieces, auditions, and everything. So it was nice to kind of like be able to be with those people. And then also within that same dormitory, we were with all the other people that were in our program as well. So like we were all kind of always together, going to class together, having lunch and all of that stuff. So it was really great way to like know the people and learn the people that you're going to be with for 4 years, but then also kind of being like, all right, I'm going to go take this class. Like, let's all go together. We'll all take the train and we'll all go together there. So we're kind of learning New York together as one unit. That was really nice. That was my first year. And then the pricing of dorms go up every year. So we were like, maybe not
Go
do
figure.
dorms.
Oh my god.
So I ended up moving into an apartment with three other girls my second year. And I mean, the program is 4 years. You do academics as well as dance classes throughout the program. And then with that, we also do two shows a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. And we audition for our professors that are on faculty. And then they also bring in choreographers that are working in New York to audition and do pieces as well.
Mm.
And those are in our spring and fall shows as well. And then something nice about PACE is that depending on the route that you want to go, if you want to be a choreographer or you just want to be a dancer, if you want to be a teacher, they allow you to kind of pick the route that you want to go into. So you still have your core classes that you have to take. But say you wanted to do choreography, they would add in choreography classes to your route for your degree. Saying that you wanted to be a teacher, they would add in pedagogy, which is the degree for teaching, into your classes. So you can have that knowledge for your 4-year degree. So they kind of give you that leeway to kind of
sorry
choose.
to cut you off. Can I ask you
Yeah.
something? Do you have any friends that went to university here in Toronto with the dance programs?
A few. I know a few that went to York and then a few that went to Ryerson. I also
So what you
auditioned for both of those
Oh, okay.
as well.
So what you just said about, like, you know, if you want to be a choreographer, dancer, background, whatever that is, there's different avenues that
Yeah.
cater to that. Do you find that that's the same with Canadian universities or no?
Um,
Or maybe just the way that they do it is more like focus on that in
yeah.
New York versus here? Like, do you know the differences?
I feel like the difference here in Toronto would be like you just have your classes and then it's just a straight dance degree. And then I know a lot of the schools focus on like jazz and ballet. Like those are like the only avenues. But then with like the uni competitions that they do, that's when you
That's
can
the
kind
only
of get in
outlet
your
for choreo.
avenues.
So
Yeah,
it's not
for
really
choreography.
embedded in the program.
No, it's like if you join the dance team, I guess they would say, because like each university has, like, I guess you could say York and Ryerson are the only two universities that have a dance program, but then each other university has a dance team. So if you join the dance team, then that's where you would get the opportunity to choreograph.
That's so stupid. Sorry.
Hmm.
Like,
Hmm.
I know, like, thank God you went to university in the States, paid all that
Hmm.
money, and you're getting that option. Like, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, imagine
Yeah.
people who are struggling to do that and they get into a program like dance here and they're not getting those options. So it's like,
Yeah.
you know, I'm so happy you had a good experience with that. But then,
Hmm.
you know, there's people like me who didn't even go to, like, I'm not doing all the things you're doing, but I still could have done that regardless of going
Right.
to PACE or all those things. So it's like, when you look back at it, I guess when the experiences that you got going to university, great and stuff, like, can you still see yourself doing those things regardless of going to New
Yeah.
York?
Yeah. I think
I
my
know it was a
knowledge.
push for you, but like
Yeah. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
bigger
Yeah.
picture of it.
Yeah, I know, like, I definitely gained, like, knowledge and confidence through that because of, like, my professors were pretty tough. But I think without it, just because of the way, like, where I grew up and the studio that I went to, like, I think the knowledge that they gave me as well, if I didn't have that outlet of pace, I still could have made my way as a choreographer here.
Left field question, kind of in the
Hmm.
same department. What are the biggest differences with culture in the dance scene in the States versus Canada?
Um, I always say, like, whenever I come home, we're in our like little Toronto bubble. Just because, like, I have found when I come back and I take classes here and everything, I find that like I'm taking classes from my peers that I grew up with, which is great. Everybody like deserves to have those outlets and stuff within the Toronto area because if we're not doing it, who's gonna do it? But at the end of the day, I feel like when I'm in the States, no matter if it's New York or LA, like I'm taking classes from the people that have done like massive, massive jobs, like people that have worked with Brittany, people that have worked with Janet, and then they're coming back and pouring into knowledge within like the community of New York, LA, Atlanta.
Yeah.
Whereas like I use Tatiana Parker because she was our hip hop teacher growing up, but like she went did that and then is now pouring into the Toronto dance scene
Seeing.
and
Yeah.
everything like that. So I feel like there's a lack of people like that within Toronto that have like gone, done their career, and then are now coming back and pouring into the community of Toronto type thing.
Yeah. Or
Yeah.
there's some that have gone and done that and they either don't come back
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
they come back and it's I would say or assume they lose that drive kind of because then they come
Yeah.
back to Toronto and it's just like again going back to my what I was saying earlier just like the space that we're in it's good but like it's a bubble at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
Did you feel that like prior to signing up to go audition for these universities, like being like, Toronto's not it?
I felt like there was just more I could have gotten out of it. I mean, I feel like I could have been a great dancer. We have so many friends that have done it, but I'm also now looking at the 4 or 5, or now we're almost at 10 years from high school. All of the people
Crazy.
that, which is crazy.
Crazy.
um,
Yeah.
but all of the people that we graduated with that are just now dipping into the dance industry, you know what I mean? And like, they're now moving away to London, or they're going away to LA and New York. And it's like, oh, what could have been if you just had jumped in
Yeah.
right when we did it, instead of waiting till our 27th, 28th year. Whereas like, honestly, our bodies aren't the same. Like, we still have the capability, like your technique and
Yeah.
all that's not going to go away. But like, there are certain things that like I can't do when I was 18, 19, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I
it's like
know.
almost kind of, oh, what could have been? Oh, I know, like you could
Yeah.
have done. And I'm so happy for like everybody that's doing it now and like grabbing it and going. But I'm just like, oh, I
They
know that
tried
like
it.
if you tried right then and there, you would have soared,
Yeah.
soared. Because I
But I
mean,
think it even, sorry to cut you off, I think it even
no,
goes
go
back
ahead.
to what you saying that is kind of just like when you're at that age, you actually don't know
You don't know.
what's gonna make you jump and soar. Like,
Yeah.
yes, a dancer could be doing what you did and then soaring that way, but maybe them staying back and taking the classes, they soared in like learning about themselves on a
Yeah.
emotional like, you know what I mean? There's
Mm-hmm,
just,
mm-hmm,
I'm guilty of it. I think of the truly things I should have done or shouldn't
mm-hmm,
have
mm-hmm.
done, let's just
Yeah.
say. I still thrive in the ways I do, but I do get
Yeah.
in that cycle of like, oh fuck, I should have did that. Like even my grade 12 year, I didn't dance.
Mm-hmm.
I still think something like I should have just did it anyways,
Just did it.
regardless of how I was feeling about
Yeah.
it. I guess for you, I know you jumped and you did all of that. I'm sure there's little opportunities that you may have missed or kind of just like
Mm-hmm,
look
mm-hmm.
past. Like, what do you do in those situations moving forward when you think about it?
I try not to sit in those moments. I mean, because there's always things that like I'll miss here, but then if I'm here, there's things that I'll miss when I'm in New York. You know what I mean? So it's like it's a toss and turn. I mean, over my
Uh,
4 years of school, there wasn't much happening, but then when I got out and I kind of was in the dance industry, it was a hard toss up because it was like I had a really great job right when I got out of school, but then there was a major movie filming here in Toronto, and my agents were like, do you have time? Like, are you going to be able to? And I was like, no, I'm on like a full-time like dance gig in New York,
I moved all the
so
way
it
to
was,
New York for you to tell me
and for
that
you to tell
there's
me
an
that
event
there's a,
happening 20 minutes from my house. Thank you.
no, literally. So it was like, I have to just kind of be like, okay, that's a missed opportunity, but more will come.
Mm,
And it ended up like, I still have worked here and I've worked in New York. So it's like, I love that I have the opportunity to do both. And it's just, if I miss an opportunity at one, I know that there'll be another opportunity at the other. So,
yeah.
I try not to sit in the what if
Mm,
moments, with
yeah.
it all.
I think that kind of goes back to like what we were talking about of like Toronto
Hmm.
and New York being totally different things, because I think what you said is so valid, but at the same time, it would be more of a strain on you being in Toronto, thinking about, oh, New York, because that at the end of the day, there's still, yeah, you'll probably get the opportunity in Toronto, but like there's still so
Hmm.
many more opportunities that come up on the other side of the border. So it's just like you would be in that rut more so, I would say.
Yeah, yeah. Here for sure. I mean, because I get a lot of stuff from my agents here in Toronto, but it's more so like we have that agreement that it's like if it's a large production, if I'm gonna be here for like 2 to 3 weeks on end type thing, then they'll send me an audition where it's like if it's a day turnaround and they need me here for 24 hours, they're like it's not worth it.
Mm.
So like
I thought
they'll
it would. I know what you're saying, but I thought it would be a little bit opposite for you, more so to speak, because like you are doing everything in New York. You kind of would want that quick 24 hour and come back. No.
it depends. I mean, I've done it and I did it this summer. But at the end of the day, it's sometimes not worth it because of, I mean, then you got to take care of a flight and last minute flights, they're going to be like $600. So it's like if I'm getting paid,
You're losing all that money.
if I'm losing my, yeah. So I kind of have to like look at what the job is, what they're paying, and like if it's going to be worth me coming home for it anyways. And then I'm also, because I'm working full time in New York, I'll be taking away time from work. So it's like I kind of have to look and see if it's going to be even worth me coming home for that 24 hours. Whereas like I had a job that was here and I needed to be here for 3 weeks. And I was like, okay, cool. If they're paying a good amount, I'm going to be here for a long enough time. I will come
It's
home
worth
for
it.
that. It's worth it. But when I signed with both my agencies, I kind of talked to my agency here and I was just like, if you think it's worth it and you think it's going to be like big and grand and will even help me better in my career, send it to me and I'll figure it out. But if, again, if you think that it's just like a rinky-dink commercial, then like, don't send it to me, type of thing. So,
Has there been any situations or opportunities, not situations, where there is a big financial hit for you, but still having that on the resume would be worth it?
I would say more so in the US than here. Here, I've only done like two like big major things, but those were over COVID, so I was home anyways.
Mm.
But I did have an instance where I had a job like a job set like kind of set in stone, no contracts were signed, but then a choreographer messaged me about a movie that was filming and it paid more, so it was kind of like which one would look better on the resume, but B, like,
Yeah.
I'm still a dancer in New York that has to pay their way. So it's like, which one is going to be better for me in the long run? So I passed on the other job and took the movie. But like, that also comes with being like, the people that I got that first job with, I had a really great connection with them and everything, so they totally understood. And at the end of the day, everybody in New York or that I'm in my circle with are dancers. So everybody kind of understands and knows what everyone is going through, you know.
Yeah. I kind of want to touch more so on the financials of like this kind of industry and business because like there's a lot that like people don't understand they need to do
Yeah.
or set aside from being creative because there's a lot of amazing creative people and like they, you know, the saying is being a starving artist is probably the worst thing ever because like you can't, you
Yeah.
just like invest and like you can't even go out to like have a drink with a friend or like that, you know,
Yeah.
lifestyle just to like get your head out of the space regardless of how deep into it you are. So like
Yeah.
I don't know if you personally had moments like that or if like you'd anybody or like come across people that are really in that rut. Like what can you share about that that's like kind
Yeah.
of influenced you to like, you know, be a little bit more smarter with stuff like that?
I would say probably the hit for me was when the rebrand of the Knicks happened and I ended up losing my job going into my fourth year. That kind of switched everything in my brain, being like, okay, no, you have to have like a
No
backup or a
security.
plan. You have to have some sort of security. Because at that point in time, like I was just doing the Knicks. I was working at a gym, but like that was just a side gig. Like I didn't really need it because the Knicks was paying so well. But then when I lost it, I was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? Where am I going to get my money from? And everything like that. Because I had that like large sum of money coming in every week.
Yeah.
When that got taken away, I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Like we have to figure something out. So like that was kind of like my biggest hit. And that lasted probably around like 6 to 7 months of like me trying to figure stuff out. I was also going through a transition of agencies at that point in time. So it was like,
And it
I
was your
wasn't
final year, you
really,
just said, right?
yeah,
Wow,
that
so
I
just
was
stress on stress on
just
stress.
stress on stress. I also was
Not to
going
laugh, but
into, no, yeah, I was also going into another visa year. So it was like, lost my job, had to pay for another visa. But like with that, I had to like find other jobs to help my visa. So it was just a lot got piled on with like that year. And I'm so lucky and thankful that like I have my parents to like fall back on with a lot of situations. But at the end of the day, you know, like they can only help so much. I am 27. I have to figure it out. I got to do what I'm going to do. So there was a point where it was like, all right, you got to cut back on your subscriptions. You're going out, you're eating, you're doing this. Like, what are you focusing on to make sure that I can pay my rent, I can pay my bills at the end of the day, but then I also can live and still go take my classes, even though those are expensive in its own. But like, I
yeah.
still have to keep up with training. So it was like, what in my life that I'm doing that I can't do specifically at this moment, that I don't need in my life at this moment, that I can cut back on to help me in the long run type of thing. So that was that was kind of my like big situation. And like I've gone through like highs and lows, dips. Every once in a while it'll happen. After you come off of a job, I'm like, okay, now
Yeah.
I'm back into teaching. Now I'm back into doing this and stuff like that. So there are like highs and lows and dips in that instance. But I think like that portion was like probably the biggest hit for me.
What were you telling yourself, like, when everything kind of hit you and you were just
Yeah.
like, what the fuck? Like, what was, like, Kyanna's thoughts? Were you, like, deep in your emotions? Like, I can't believe this is happening? Was it, like, why am I
Yeah.
doing this? Like, what was that initial reaction to, like, receiving everything at once like that?
Yeah. So at that time, like I tell myself now, I was like, it wasn't you. It wasn't you. It's like working for a corporate company. I didn't realize because now I am working on the back end of a dance convention and they have turned like I'm in the process of working with them because they have turned into more of a corporate business than they have like a freelance dance company. So I've learned now that like working with like corporate people, it's not always you and there's nothing that like you can do about it. You kind of just have to roll with the punches. However, at that point in time, I was like, well, why did they decide to do this to all of us? They let go 95% of the team. That do they not know that like we're all dancers, we're all like this is our job, this is our livelihood kind of thing. And it's like at the end of the day, they had to do what was best for the company, you know, like
Yeah,
they're going to do
exactly.
what's best for the company
Yeah.
and you kind of have to figure it out on your own after that. But at that point in time, I was at a really low place because it was like that was my job. Like I was doing, like I was going into my fourth year. And at that point, I was like, okay, but you're not only just a Nick City dancer. Like you've danced, you trained 18 years of your life. You're in this industry because you're meant to be in this industry. You're not
Mm.
only going to be stuck in the box of being a Nick City dancer. You can do so many other things, and you have done so many other things, right? So it was kind of figuring out where I fit into
Mindset
the
switch?
mindset switch and then figuring out within my mind where I fit into that dance industry again, kind of like letting go of like, no, you're not
Mm.
a Nick City dancer anymore. Where are you going to take your next steps? And at the end of the day, you're a dancer, period.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah.
how can you use what you've learned, what you've been doing for the past 20 something years of your life? How do you use that and move forward into continuing to grow and learn and strive to be that big dancer in your career that you want to be type thing.
Yeah.
And that took time because like I was down in the dumps of like why but once I got out of that it was like okay, no, that been there, done that. And
Sorry to cut you
now,
off. Were you able
yeah.
to have any mutual friends that either went through the same thing or like are going through the same thing to chat about it with, or was it completely on your own?
Yeah, so I mean, basically my whole team, we almost all got caught all together. So like we had each other to lean on. And thankfully, like my managers and coaches, like they also went through sort of a different change as well within the company. So like we had them to lean on. They were always open and willing to like talk about it. And I am so grateful now. I work on the opposite end of the company. I'm now a production assistant for them.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's nice to kind of still be within it, but be on the opposite end and see the
Sorry, was this
changes.
after I came to New York or before? I don't remember this conversation.
Um,
This is like a new thing working behind the scenes. 'Cause I thought it was like Dunzo. Because I remember you said you had
no,
auditioned, but like they were just not.
yeah, no, it was, I did all of last season. And then this is my second season this year of being a production
Okay,
assistant. But yeah,
sorry,
but
I don't
last,
remember that
no,
conversation.
no worries. Last season it was very new. They were kind of like figuring out the roles and regs and like what we were doing and everything. So this year it's kind of we all know what we're doing, smooth sailing, and whatnot. So yeah, this is my second season of doing everything and working behind the scenes with them, and it's been great. But I like to still be kind of intertwined with like the company and like I'm still friends with a lot of girls that are on the team and my coaches and everything. Like they're still a really big part of my life. So it's nice to still be intertwined within like that, but like not in it as I
Yeah.
was.
How important do you think it is as a dancer to learn not only being in front of the camera but behind it as well?
Oh, very, very, very important. Just because, I mean, I've
And
always
not
said,
literally holding the camera, but like
no,
just
but
the
like the different
background
avenues.
work, you know?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I've always said, because people are like, well, how long are you going to be a dancer? How long do you want to do this for? And I've always said, I'll do it as long as my body could let me, right? And just between graduating in high school and being where I'm at now, my body can't do half of the things that I was able to do before. So it's like, I know
No
that
more tumbling for you.
no more tumbling, no more back, because my back doesn't go
Walkers.
back
Yeah,
anymore,
yeah.
so it's like,
At least your back was able to do that.
I had a lot of abilities, but it's like to learn the different avenues. And I was always interested on different things within the dance industry. There's so many
Okay.
things that you can do. And knowing a lot of the choreographers that I work with now that had vast dance careers, and now they're executive producers, they're directors, they're creative directors, and they're on the creative team, but they had a vast dance career. So it's like you can do both. Like dance doesn't end for you when you stop physically dancing. You know what I mean?
Did you know
Um,
that growing up? Or was it always
uh,
like, I want, like, the knowledge you're saying right now? I'm
yeah.
wondering if, like, growing up, you were like, I want to be a dancer, but, like, I can do those things too.
Yeah, I
Or was
think
it
for
like,
me growing up, it was if I wasn't going to be a dancer, then you'd be a choreographer. It was like one of the two. I didn't really
oh,
know that there
either
were
or both?
kind of both. No, both. Like, but then
Oh, okay, got it.
once you stop dancing, you'll do choreographing kind of thing.
Hmm.
So it was like
I
I
think that's
didn't
kind
really
of
realize.
the generalness of it.
Yeah, yeah,
Some,
yeah.
like, sometimes, you know?
But then being in it, you get to realize that like there's so many different avenues, and I mean, Mandy is probably the biggest person that we can know that have done so much. Um, Emmy nominated. She's a creative director, executive producer. She's done so
Didn't she
much, but
do
like
Eras Tour?
she did the Eras
I
tour.
found
She's
that out, like, a
still
month ago. I was like, good
no,
for you, girl.
literally did the Eras tour. She's still doing Dancing with the Stars, like, but then we'll do major motion pictures, and like just even if the motion picture doesn't have like a dance aspect to it, she's like the motion director,
Movement
the
director,
movement
yeah.
director. So
Yeah.
it's like there's so many different avenues that you could go without being like a physical dancer kind of thing. And like just being in it, I've learned that like, okay, if I'm not a dancer, then all of these tools are going to help me to find the different avenues that I want to do. If I want to be a creative director, if I want to be executive producer, a movement director, kind of like wherever I want to be, you can be once you stop dancing physically.
I
Mm-hmm.
guess that can lead into the next question I have. Like, obviously, besides like the work aspect of it, and like what you
Mm-hmm.
said, being in front of the camera and behind it, that
Mm-hmm.
still involves dance. Are you able to find yourself outside of dance as an
Like
individual,
as an
or
individual, yeah.
do you still feel like, are you a type of person that's really just like, I am dance?
Hmm. I think when I was in high school and like in uni, I was like, no, I'm a dancer. Like that is it. This is me. Da da da. But then again, as you grow, you learn, you find who you are as a person, as a human. And something my mom has always said, like you're a human first, you're a dancer second, and like that has always come into play. Is like, okay, yes, I'm always going to be a dancer. I've done that my entire life and I love it. It's my passion. But at the end of the day, you're a human, you're a person. You want to have a life outside of it. And I think for me and many others, this can be such a tiring and like
Overwhelming.
overwhelming career to have, especially because there's so many highs and lows and valleys and dips that like if you immerse yourself in it 100%, 24/7 a day, that like it can get exhausting. So like
Yeah.
it's good to make sure that like you can do things outside of dance, you can think of things outside of dance. And I kind of love that New York is like my dance home and like my dance place, and I come home and like I have my friends, I have my family, I have like
Socialize and
I
that's
still
it.
have my social life. Like I know when I come home, like I'm coming to see my friends, I'm coming to see my family. I'll go see the dance studio, but it's not I'm coming home to work. I'm coming home to do like dance and jobs and all of that stuff. Yes, it happens because I still work here, but like it's my home base. It's where like my life started. That's where I started before career as like dancer Kyanna is,
Yeah.
kind
Do
of
you think
thing.
you'd be able to do that regardless of us being so distant from you? Like, let's just say New York was literally your home, and
My home base.
we were all where you were, and you just were like a 20-minute drive. Do you think you would be able to separate yourself from dancer to social life, or do you think it would have been more so
I
like
think
dancer
I,
work
I
still?
think I would have to, because it's so like, I give you the example. I lived in New York for 8 years. I moved out to Jersey. Like I live in Jersey now because it's like,
Expensive.
I always say it's expensive. It's expensive for one, but I always say it's my little like oasis away from like the hustle and bustle and the like mental capacity that like the city puts on me. Because like every time I'm in the city, it's go go go. I'm working. I'm there for jobs. I'm there for class and everything like that. Whereas like when I go home, it's my oasis. I don't have to think about anything. So I have a feeling if like that situation was 24/7, I would have to find my little avenues to just put dance away for a second and like have a normal life outside of my career and being a dancer.
Have you found those already? Like, what do you do aside from
Uh
dance and work and stuff?
yes, I've been trying. I mean, I have, you have your friends and everything. I have a lot of family that is in New York, so like sometimes I'll try to just
Mm.
like go see them. And like that'll be my kind of little getaway. Even though I travel with a dance convention and that's work, it gets me out of the city, which is nice because I get to see different states every weekend. But also like I know that like New York is work and it's dance and it's kind of all consuming within that. Whereas like, oh, I'm going to St. Louis this weekend. Let's go explore the city.
Mm.
And if I'm in Atlanta, I know that's a really big like dance hub. So I'll be like, oh, okay, let me go see like what classes are over there and kind of get like a different experience from what's going on and what's happening in New York. So I
Got it.
think that's kind of like the
Your
aspect that I
break.
take and yeah, the
Mm.
break that I have,
That's
which is
interesting.
nice.
I can totally agree with that. Like, a change of scenery is great. I think with me, I would still find myself being like, I'm in this dance space. I'm
Hmm.
still, yeah, you're traveling, but like you have to dance. Yeah, not
Hmm.
physically,
Hmm.
but
Hmm.
like. So my question to you with that is like, have you found any other outlets or hobbies that like are just kind of left field that you're interested in, or have you found, or do you just feel like you found that through dance and doing different avenues?
Yeah, I love like cross training, working out, doing like other things that like I'm still within fitness and like
Mm.
keeping my body going, but it's not taking a class, like taking a dance class or learning steps type
Yeah,
thing.
just shut it off.
Just shut literally I shut it off and I'll go take a yoga class and like
uh,
go zen out for like an hour. You know what I mean? Um, so like that's nice. And I've recently got into like reading and just like little things, reading and journaling and
mm,
things that'll kind of take me away from where am I going to get my next paycheck from kind of thing, because that's the like stressful part of it all.
yeah.
So if I have those like little outlets and those little avenues and seeing friends and going for a drink or seeing a movie, after a really stressful day at work, I'll go and I'll go sit and go see a movie and then go home, go to bed. You know what I mean? So like
Yeah.
those little things kind of keep me sane in the like
Mm,
crazy, crazy outlet of New York and dancing and everything.
yeah. Well, kind of speaking about
Hmm.
where the next paycheck comes, even though I just asked you what do you do to step away from that,
Hmm.
how did you get into the convention dance industry business, so to speak, and like how did that
Yeah.
start?
Yeah, so we grew up on the break the floor, jump conventions, all of that stuff. I found the outlet and avenue when I was going through that like dip within losing the Knicks. It was like, okay, if I'm not going to be dancing, that kind of was the trigger of like, what other avenues can I find within the dance industry, but not physically dancing.
Mm,
So at that point in time, Jump was hiring, and I had reached out to one of my good friends on Nouveau, and they put me in contacts with all of the other people that like we kind of grew up with that were sitting behind the desk that were now in office.
mm,
Um, Put me in contact with them. I had a bunch of interviews, and within 2 weeks, I had my first like tester. weekend out. And that, I like the job that I do because it works a different part of my brain. I'm like doing computer stuff. I'm
Data
tabulating.
management.
I'm doing data. I'm doing scholarships. I'm working with numbers. And it's like something completely different. Even though it's a dance convention, I'm not on the dancer side. I'm on the opposite side of it all. So I'm
That's
basically
probably what keeps
running.
you going, probably, because like if
Yeah.
you're doing data management somewhere else,
Hmm.
it would go over
I
your
would
head,
hate, yeah, I would fully go over. Whereas like
Yeah.
I still know what I'm talking about because it's dancer terms, but I'm not using my body in dancing and having to use my brain to learn a dance step type of thing. Um, I'm telling people how much a wristband is. I'm filling out different information, competition fees, doing scholarships. So it's like I kind of am within the world of dance, but doing all the things to run a dance company on the other end of it. Yeah.
Is that something you would
Mhm.
want to get into yourself?
Yeah. So basically, funny enough, when I got hired, they wanted to hire me as a convention manager, but at that point in time, the role needed you to be in LA, and I just wasn't at that point in time, and like being able to like up and move my life over to LA at the where I was. So I kind of took the back burner on and just I do registration now. So it's like a little less responsibilities of what a convention manager would do. But till this day, they still ask me to
Try it out.
interview and try it out and do it for it. I actually
It's for
was
jump, you
in,
said?
yeah, for Jump. I was in Long Island and Mike Bennery was there and he was like, "So you're still not taking the convention manager spot?" And I was like, "Unless they let me do it from New York, I'm not doing it." And he was like, "I think it's coming soon." So they're always in constant talks with me and like wanting me to do more within the company. But yeah, at this time I can't because I can't be in LA and they like require you to do that.
I think my next question, or just
Hmm.
kind of topic to get into, dance can be a lot at the end of the
Hmm.
day, and like I've shared with you a lot, and I've been sharing with a lot of people my kind of spiritual journey and what I've been through and how I'm seeing the world through a different lens. And like,
Hmm.
I learned a lot about how dancing itself, when we're in it so much, we're
Hmm.
accustomed to being a certain way and acting a certain way, essentially performing. So I think that gets bled into our personalities, and at
Hmm.
some point we start becoming a performer for the people around us and how we step into the world. So like, have you found yourself being aware of that side of Kyanna, and like how have you zoned into yourself when you come across
Yeah.
situations like that?
Yeah, I feel there are situations, of course, that like you have to perform for it. It's either a job interview or like you're talking to an executive or whatnot. But I always remind myself like I am who I am, but I also don't want to put on a persona that like in
Mm.
case they see a different side of me, they're going to be like, well, who is this person? Who are we meeting? You know? So I
Yeah.
try to always go into situations if I'm meeting new people, if I'm talking to executives, like I'm always going to be myself because at the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's me,
You have to.
you have to. Um, of course, you're going to talk a little bit more professional when you're talking to like an executive producer or someone like the owner of a company, and then you're going to talk a little bit more slack when you're with your
Yeah.
coworkers. But in those situations, I try to always step into big rooms or the people that I'm talking to exactly as who I am, so they know exactly who they're talking to. I never want to put on like a persona of someone else because at the end of the day, that's not me, you know?
Has there been a moment through this whole journey where you've realized like, oh, I'm actually not being myself, and like enough was enough, and like what happened then and there? Do
I
you
would
remember?
say I've stayed true to myself within like almost all of my dance career. I never wanted to put on a persona that I'm someone else or that I don't act the way that I do or I don't come off the way that
Actually,
I
sorry,
do.
if I could stop you there.
Yeah.
I think the question I'm asking, you're answering it correctly 100%.
Hmm.
I think it goes down more to an emotional level and like a
Hmm.
core level. The question, what you're saying
Hmm.
is 100% like don't put on the persona, but I think it even
Yeah.
gets down to the point of being like a people pleaser. You know what I
Haha.
mean? And
Yeah.
that aspect, like, oh, I actually don't
Yeah.
feel good today, but I'm gonna show up and I'm gonna be okay. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
deep, like, you know what I mean? I
Hmm.
100% what you're saying. Like, I was never putting a persona up, but I did have that performance of like,
Yeah.
you know, I need to care for everybody. I need to feel a certain way or act a certain way. And
Oh, yeah.
sometimes still me, but like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So like, what was
Yeah.
that experience for you? And like, did you have that moment of being like, I can't do this anymore?
I don't think it ever got to the point of like, no, I can't do this anymore. But there are certain like instances or like times that I'm like, okay, you just got to do it. You just got to go. You just got to show up. You just like, there's days, especially working in the corporate world, that I'm like, I don't want to deal with these people. And I think that's so different than like corporate from like dance industry, you know, because it's
Yeah.
like I feel like you can be yourself in the dance industry, whereas like when you're
Mm.
talking to corporate people, you have to, yep, uh-huh, I'll do this, I'll do that, da da da. And there's days where I'm like, I don't want to, you know what I mean? Like I don't want to say
No.
yes to you. Like, no, I don't want to do that. And I kind of got to that point when I was working at the gym probably about 6 months ago now. I got let go from that position, but like they kind of did it in a really messy way. And I had worked for the company for 3 years. They had worked with my schedule. I went into it telling them that I'm a professional dancer. Like this is kind of my side gig. This is my grocery money and all that stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm like, not 100%, but like, I'm going to give my all where I can, but you have to work with me if I work with you type thing. And we had gone through a lot of management switches. And at this last management switch, they were just, it was me coming and them butting heads with me. And as much as I explained and said this, they were kind of being like, no, 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 you have to do this. You have to be available when we tell you you have to be available type thing. And I was like, I'm sorry, but I can't. Like, I really, like, I just physically can't. My schedule doesn't allow me to do that. And there was a point where I had put in my availability and I had come home for a job and I told my parents, I was like, don't be surprised if I go back and I don't have that job anymore. Like I have a feeling that they're gonna let me go, but I
Mm.
also like I was ready to let that job go. It wasn't aligning with me anymore. I had to be a yes man. I had to do things that like they wanted to do. They weren't working with me with what I needed. So it just wasn't a good fit anymore. And I was getting tired of it. Like I always say, like I don't want to dread going to work. If I start dreading going to work, then I gotta let it go.
Mm.
And that is where I was at that point with that job because it was just, okay, you gotta do it. Okay, you gotta go. It's a paycheck. You gotta do it. You gotta put that smiley face on. You gotta go deal with your boss that's being an asshole to you and all that stuff. So it's like I was just done and tired of it. And that's kind of what was my breaking point of being like, all right, no, I'm good to let that go. And I was okay at the end of it. Like other things came into play, but it was probably a year of me just being like, all right, let's get up, let's
Suck
go,
it
let's
up.
do it. Just suck it
Yeah.
up. You just got to do it. You know what I mean? And dealing with some really crappy people on the other end, like that is where I was like, okay, I've had enough. I can't deal with that anymore. In those type of situations. But within the dance industry, I don't think that I've ever like felt that I needed to just like get up and go. I mean, of course, there's auditions that you don't want to go
There's days where
to.
you're
There's
tired,
these
like
days where I'm
literally, I get
tired and
up
I'm
and go.
like,
Yeah.
oh, this is another like we were going when we were going through all the self tape era, which I still have to do, but it's like, oh, it's another self tape that I have to do. So like there's those instances that I'm like, I
Yeah.
just don't want to do it, but I have to if I want to get the job, you
Yeah.
know? So there's always that. And that's always going to happen. But at the end of the day, I always have to remind myself, I'm like, okay, no, you chose this career. Like, you want to do it. You got to put the work in to get what you want at the end of it, kind of thing.
Kind of going back to the dance convention aspect, because like yes, you have that
Hmm.
corporate. I'm gonna like I've been in kind of both worlds of like dance, free spirit, all that, and then
Yeah.
corporate or do it by the book. So I get both sides of it. So I'm happy
Hmm.
that there's an implementation of that. How do you navigate that space though when you have conflicts like that? Because you're gonna run into them again. You're gonna
Yeah.
see them around, and you can do whatever you want. There's still an underlyingness of
Hmm.
I need to still keep myself in this bubble.
Yeah.
So like, how do you
Um,
take the moments like the manager wasn't working out, and then because it can it, to be blunt, dance scene can be catty at times. It really
Oh,
can.
100% it
Because there's a
can.
lot of personality, and then like again going back to the whole like performance and putting in the front. Like sometimes you can
Yeah.
walk and hang, you meet people, and you can just feel that everyone's just kind of trying to be
Hmm.
something, and
Yeah.
it's again it's in a way it's a teaching, but it's not at the same time. Whatever, but like how do you like
Right.
even take moments like that to move forward in?
Yeah. I feel like I never want to burn a bridge with someone. So I never, because at the end of the day, you never know if they're going to quit that job and then they're going to be hiring you on another job. You know what I mean? So it's like you may have those frustrating moments. And at that time, it may have just not worked out for you. It wasn't meant for you to be in that space in that time in that moment. But I always try to think of, okay, that wasn't right. That wasn't right timing or whatever. How can you learn from the situation and bring it into something new? Um, and within the dance industry, like I know I'm an energy person, so it's like if I can read your energy and I see that we're not gonna mesh well, then I kind of just like sit back. I'll do my thing, but I'm not gonna like engage to say that like we're gonna be buddy buddy at the end of the day because I know that like our energies aren't gonna match, and I may not like you, and that's okay because we don't, nobody has to like everybody. But if we're gonna be in the same room together, we have to coexist together. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like finding those ways of like reading people and reading energies and reading in the room. And I know a lot of choreographers say that like you have to be a person that is workable. So you have to be able to be in a room with someone that you don't necessarily like, or the choreographer might not necessarily like you, but you're doing well at your job. So it's like, how do you find those ways to still be okay with different energies, different personalities? Because that's a huge thing is personalities within this industry. I'm a happy-go-lucky, bubbly person, but there's someone that isn't going to mesh well with someone coming in and being like, "Good morning," every day. You know what I mean? So how do you
Shut up,
deal with
Susan.
literally? So it's like, how do you deal with that? And that goes back to just being who you are. Like, not everyone is going to like you, not everyone is going to mesh well with you, but at the end of the day, you still have a job to do, right?
I think to put a little bit pause on what you just said about being in spaces where
Mm-hmm.
you got to do what you got to do. I think
Mm-hmm.
we grew up learning to constantly be in that space,
Mm-hmm.
but not learning that yes, you need to be in that space, but there's need to be some times where you have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that keeps going back to like the whole understanding of like putting that performance front up. You know what I mean? Because like
Mm-hmm.
what you just said, I think, mind you, I'm not really in the same space that you're in. Yeah, I'm a dancer, I teach and all that stuff, but like
Yeah.
I didn't go to school like you did. I'm not living that lifestyle. Like I walk
Mm-hmm.
my dog every morning and night. Like I'm just a different person, you know.
Yeah.
But you saying that rubbed me the wrong way because it
Mm.
was just like yes but no, like yes there's gonna be times where you need to work with people and that's fine, but like
Yeah.
that shouldn't allow for, let's just say, a toxic work environment to take place, and I think that's what the
Yeah.
issue is, you know.
Yeah.
And then obviously we don't need to say it, but all the drama that happened with a corporate company recreating that's why that needed
Mm-hmm.
to happen.
A hundred
And
percent.
then I take that, I'm going on a tangent a little bit, but then I take
Mm-hmm.
that and then I say, okay, so what the fuck did I just learn for the last
Right.
15 years? What was I
Mm-hmm.
truly learning? Yes, I was
Mm-hmm.
learning to dance, but then, you know, before we were talking about this, we were talking about, you said how it's not like that in the dance space where you feel like you're not being yourself. I was
Mm-hmm.
always myself, but when I stepped into those spaces, I felt like there was a front the whole time. I
Mm-hmm.
felt like the space I was walking into was a front.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I didn't.
Yeah.
Everyone's happy-go-lucky. Like you had those people that like. The older I get, and the more I like see different people, I can see when
Yeah.
someone's kind of just like laughing just to laugh, not laughing
Mm-hmm.
and enjoying the conversation. And then when I reflect on that, I'm like, wow, like a lot of people literally just laughed to shut me up. Not an ego thing, but you know what I
Right.
mean. And then
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about you think about like some of the girls that were always complaining, like, oh, like I don't want to do this. Like
Mm-hmm.
they had that front putting up, and then like it was just I don't know. I guess it's
Mm-hmm.
part of growing up. I guess that's just the way that I experienced it. Everyone experiences different, but it's kind of just like there's different ways to cultivate an environment where you can
Yeah.
learn to say no, but also I need to work through this. I'm not getting harmed. I'm not, it's nothing bad. I need to
Mm-hmm.
work and take my emotions out of it.
Yeah.
So I guess the
Yeah.
follow up question with that is, do you have a hard time taking your emotions out of things, regardless if you're doing them or not?
I would say yeah, because I'm a very emotional person to begin with. Take a lot of things personally, and I'm learning and learned to not always take things personally because again, it's not always you. And I feel like I've learned that lesson from auditioning a lot because at the end of
Mm,
the day, you have no idea what's going on that opposite side of the table.
mm,
And I've always had to tell myself, your dancing's good, your talent is good. No one can ever take that away from you. However, they're looking at something different on the other side of the table. And being on the other side of the table, I now know that and I now realize that. I mean, a lot of the times it could be the way that your hair is cut, the color of your hair, the way that you fit in a lineup, and like there's just a lot of things that like you can't control and you
mm,
can't take personally because it's just not you at the end of the day. There's all these other things that they're trying to fit a mold into or they're trying to make a mold of, and if you don't fit it, you don't fit it. And that just
yeah.
you can't, it's not you. You can't take it personally. And I've had to learn. Like I took a lot of things, especially at the beginning of my dance career and working with the people that I have, I've had to learn that like, no, it's not you. It's not your talent. It's not the person that you are. It's just, there's other things that people they have to
Mm.
answer to. One, a lot of choreographers have to answer to more than just them. Um, and then at the end of the day, there's things that they have to look at. You just might not be the right fit for it. And that's okay. You
Do
know?
you take that knowledge with relationships as well?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you find it harder job wise or relationship wise to get in that mindset of being like, okay,
Relationship wise, I
yeah.
would say. Yeah. It's
Would you
definitely
say
been
it?
tough.
Do you find it more so with dance related people versus regular people?
Um, I don't know, actually.
I'm only asking just 'cause I'm already giving my spiel on like the dance thing. I might
Yeah.
sound negative, might sound not. I'm just like speaking for what it is, kind of in
Yeah,
my
yeah,
own
yeah.
way. But like, I think that it's hard to navigate that, especially when you're working with people that have that same creative right brain or left brain, whatever it is. I think it's right brain.
Hmm. Yeah.
Kind of mentality and lifestyle. Because like, if we could get back into like dance people and relationships, like I've experienced a lot of people that were great to me and were great, but then I would watch them have a relationship or a conversation with somebody else, and I saw a completely different person. And
Hmm.
then it's like you don't want to take that as like, oh, that they're gonna treat me like that, but you kind of have to be like, that's an option for them to treat me like that
Yeah.
as well. So like, yeah, I think it's hard for you because you have the dance people, but you work with them also. So like, even
Yeah.
taking that, it's just like, how do you
Yeah, and
come
I
to a
guess you
place where
could.
it's just like, I think at one point, yes, you don't want to take things personally, but I think
Hmm.
some points you have to be a little bit personal. Be like, that's not my moral code. That's not a line that I'm stepping forward, or you're stepping
Yeah.
across over.
I would kind of have to say it hit for me what we're talking about over the last year, just because like even though I'm working on a dance convention and with dancers, we're on the corporate side of it. So it's like if I was an assistant, I would be with them all the time and working with the faculty, but I'm working with our corporate people and the people that are on a different end. We may all be dancers, but we're not dancing. And I came into like a really big understanding this last season, whereas someone jeopardized my job basically because they didn't like me personally. And they
Mm,
had a hard time separating personal and professional, and had a hard time articulating personal and professional, and brought personal into the job, and it ended up affecting my job. And I didn't
mm,
really have anything to do with it. They just had a personal issue and couldn't tell me what their issue was. And because that they were at a higher position that I was, my job got affected. So that was like the biggest thing, because then I had to reflect and step back and be like, well, why am I being the one that's being reprimanded? Why am I getting my job taken away if like it has nothing to do with me? But at the end of the day, it's the people that are higher up with you that are making the decision. If they don't like you or they don't like something that you're doing, they're just going to let you go. Right.
Yeah.
That went on for a whole year. So
That's
it was really, really tough and really annoying. And it helped me grow and learn the people that I can lean on, because this season is completely different. In talking to the people that I am working with currently, they literally snatched me. They were like, no, you're great. You're a great person. You're a great human. You do great work. And we know that like the weekends are going to be better with you on our team. So we're going to take you. You're not going to be in that environment anymore. So there's people that recognize you as a person and like the people that you are, but my personality and the way that I am and the way that I worked didn't mesh with that person. So again, that was their issue, not mine. But I had to come to terms that like I'm not going to be for everyone in that instance. Yeah.
Which is annoying because like you don't want to.
Yeah.
I think with me, I'm in the same boat. Like I don't want people not to like me, but it's not like to the extent where I'm like, oh, they don't like me, I need to do something. Like
yeah.
I could be really aware of it. I'm just like, okay, well, don't be mean to me. Let's be neutral at least.
And that was like the hardest part for me, because it was like, again, like you don't have to like me, but like we still have a job to get done. But at the beginning of it all, it was okay, you don't like me, like what is it? What, like, is it something that I'm doing? Is it my work? Is it like I was trying to, again, people please and being like, okay, you don't like this, like let me switch something about me or something about the way that I work or whatever to have you tolerate or like me at the end of the day. But why am I gonna compromise myself to make you like me? But no, that's your issue. You have to figure that out on your own. I am who I am. I bring to the table what I bring to the table. I'm not going to dim my light because you can't figure it out. Right?
There's just something, like I'm listening to you, and there's just something in the dance scene that is just what you just said, like why you're like worrying about yourself, like what am I doing wrong? And it's kind of just like, I guess a perspective to look at it. It's just like it kind of like happens when we're in the dance studio. Like we're working as a team. You have to look at yourself in the mirror. You're not doing it right. Do it again. Until you get that praise, then you're good enough.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Like as an adult, I'm just like, why did I even go to the dance studio? You know what I mean? I'm a different breed, obviously, but it's just thinking about those things. And then to get a little bit into that, like I was aware that there was a little bit of a passive aggressiveness in like the space between people, because we were always told like you have to come in the studio, do this, like like you see little kids now, you probably done it yourself, I have too, like they really need to pee but they peed 3 times, you're like, you're not peeing, you're staying in the room, like very rigid, very like it's, I don't want to say it is what it is, but it's just what it is for us and what we grew up in. So it's recognizing how it kind of gets put into our personality and what it changes our world into, and it's like, if I could take the root of where that came from, obviously that comes from before dance, but I think dance really
shaped
the
us.
wheels on that, and it drove us in that direction, and it's like when you think about that, what do you say to yourself and how do you step into the world differently when you come to these conclusions? Or did I just give you stuff that you never thought about?
No, literally never thought about. Just because it's like, I mean, I look at it as like a generational thing. I'll go back to the studio all the times, and like I'll tell them all the time. I'm like, you're not hard, like you're not as hard as you that you were on them as you were on us. You know what I mean? And I'll say that to them, and they'll be like, I know, da 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 da. So it's like those types of things. I'm like, why? Like the three trick rule, like. You fall out of your tricks 3 times, you're off the stage. Like, that doesn't happen anymore. And, like, me and my girlfriends will talk about it, and we'll talk to our dance teachers about it. And they're like, it's just different. It's just different. So I think it's, like, the way that the dance industry has shifted, the way that, like, studio culture has shifted and everything like that. It was so much. Toxic. And I wouldn't say toxic. I mean, again, my experience is different than yours and everything. But I can see it now being in the, like, convention, like, scene. It's, like... parents are like so on, like the amount that oh, can I have an observer band? Like, observer bands are $65. Like, why are you paying $65 to go watch your senior who's 16 plus? Like, no, let them go do their thing. You know what I mean? And like, me and my coworkers always talk about it, and we're like, my mom would just drop us at the door and be like, see you at 3. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like,
Or what time do I come
oh,
at?
what time do I come? Like, do you need me in the dressing room? No?
The
Okay,
moms are getting
good.
lunch,
The
getting
moms
some
are like,
wine.
right. So it's like I feel like it's just the culture, the way that like things have shifted. It's just like, and I know for me, like I don't think I would have done well in the industry or not the industry, but like the culture that it is now.
Mm.
I just because like it's so
Hands
hands
on.
on. Whereas like no. Like, and my mom will even say it too. She was like, what am I paying your dance teachers to teach you for if I'm just going to be the one that's on you in your classes? She was like, no, I pay them. They're going to be the ones that are giving you corrections and everything like that. I don't need to be in the room. You know, like I'm there to vent with after. If you come off stage and you do a bad job, like you can talk to me about it. But like, they're the ones that are going to give you corrections. They're the ones that are the professionals. Why am I in the room kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like that has shifted a little bit in the culture of studios and competition and all of that stuff, where it was like before it was so much training based. Your teachers are there, they're there to tell you what to do. You come in, you're there from 3 to 10, you do your dances, you train and that, then you go to compete, you know. And it was that you did it for years on end. And
Yeah.
I mean, I know I didn't have much of like a outside social life outside of dance. Like I went to school and I
Yeah.
went to dance, and like that was it. Now kids are going on 3-week vacations and all of that stuff, where it was like that just wasn't allowed. Like our grade 8 trip to Ottawa, I didn't go on that. Like they were afraid that I was going to break a bone in Ottawa skiing, you know. It's a different, and I studios are still doing well. I mean, like,
Yeah.
and the training is still amazing. I always say that like the best kids come out of Ontario studios, like, and I hear it day to day being on an American convention. Like
Mm.
they always talk about Canadian kids, and it's the way that our
And
teachers are.
just maybe I think I like Halifax and them too. I never really experienced that.
Yeah,
Like, do you
I've
guys get sorry to cut
experienced.
you off? Do you get a lot
No,
of
yeah, yeah.
people like in different provinces coming too?
Yeah. So I've done a lot of work in Ottawa this year, and the studios in Ottawa are just like insane. And I feel it kind of goes with the Toronto bubble. We were such in like our little Ontario bubble that like
It
we
spreads a
never.
little bit.
It's yeah, it spreads a little bit, but like you know the 4 or 5 studios that you compete against them all year,
Mm.
right? And now I'm getting like the little, because I'm working a lot more in different provinces. I'm getting to see the different studios within Canada, and the talent is just bonkers. And everybody across the states talks about the Canadian studios. Like it's just,
Mm.
we're at a caliber and at like a different mindset that a lot of the US studios aren't at. And it's amazing. It's
Interesting.
great. But yeah, they like rave about the talent in Canada and the
Mm.
studios in Canada and everything like that, which like attests to the teachers that we grew up with. But I also think that they're not, yes, things have shifted, but I don't think that they have shifted as much as things in the US has, in terms of like the competition culture and the way that parents
Yeah.
are and stuff like that, you know?
Interesting. I have
Yeah.
two things following up what you just said. I
Hmm.
interviewed Felicia the other day, and I didn't
Hmm.
fact check it, but I'm sure she's correct. She said I think Toronto or Ontario has the highest density of dance studios in the entire world,
Yeah, I think so.
which is crazy. I'm like, oh
No, it's insane.
yeah, I didn't know
It's
that.
insane. Well, weird off topic, but my mom we were talking about like the election and whatever happened and how they're trying to make Canada the 51st state. And my mom was like, Canada's bigger than the United States. Like Canada's huge. And like
Yeah,
I never even realized it until like you look at it at an outside
at a map.
perspective. And I'm like, or at a map, and I'm like, oh
Yeah,
no, it's massive. And like
yeah, just not the
I'm now
populations, but
just not the populations, but like
yeah.
I see kids that, like, I went to an Ottawa studio, and one of the choreographer was like, oh, how many people are from Ottawa? And like everybody raised their hands, and one girl was like, oh, I'm not. And I was like, where are you from? She's like, Toronto. So it was like weird, you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's so many dancers that are everywhere. It's large but it's small at the same time,
Yeah.
you know?
It's interesting you
Hmm.
said though that I would assume it's the opposite in the States, because the way that I look at it, I haven't experienced it, but like I
Hmm.
see like you do see a difference in like the university teams when they go compete. Like our kids are going to theaters, and then you see like the videos on Instagram of the U.S. kids, and they're the full turn sections, and
Yeah,
they're all
yeah,
like layout out. You know what I mean? It's crazy. So like
yeah.
even thinking about that, and like some kids start training at 11 a.m. and they train till 8. So like
Hmm.
I think in that aspect I'm
You
confused a
would think
little
it
bit
was
because I'm
different.
like, yeah. So like
Yeah.
what like on your experience on it?
I think, honestly, I think it's I mean, you know this, the stigmatism for Canada is everybody's so nice. So I think it's like when you're in the room with
We're just
a
passive
Canadian,
aggressive.
but it's like when you're in the room with a Canadian, they have that like persona, like not persona, but that energy and aura. But then a lot of the times, like they just say it's a different beast, and it's a different type of
Mm.
training. It's a different, like I was talking to Denise Wall the other day, and she was talking about my studio owner, Joanne, and she was like, no, she's one of the most respected, and she's Canadian, you know what I mean? She's one of the most respected
That's so cool.
dance studio teachers and studio owners in the world, you know? And like,
Mm.
I even sometimes have a hard time like reflecting and look back at like, no, Joanne is massive. Like, she is
Or
like
coming to realize
coming to a
that.
realization, and it's like, because I always try to like keep humble in those certain like situations, and I've now realized this now. I was telling my mom about it the other day, and it was like I don't really tell people like I'm like, oh yeah, I'm from Canada, yeah, I dance, but unless they ask me, I don't say like the studio that I come from, and like we'll just be in competition or conversations, and people will be like, well, where did you dance, where did you go up at, and I'm like, oh yeah, I danced at Joanne's, and they'll just like stare at me. And
Mm.
like these are people in the United States, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So it was like I think that like Canadians, because you hear of Art and Soul, you hear of Elite, like these are big, big names in the Canadian dance industry, but they also hold their own in the
Mm.
US because, and
That's cool.
I think I've explained it to my coworkers now because they're like, you like we don't see you guys like, and there's kids that'll travel from city to city to city going to different jumps, going to different nouveaux and 24/7s, and I'm like, no, we have Toronto, that's in September, and then we all go to Buffalo, and then if we go to the dance awards, that's in June.
So there's
Like,
only three.
there's only three times that we're like going over to that, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
they're like, but why? And I'm like, well, we don't start competing until like end of March, beginning of April. Like, we're training up until then, because they were all asking me why there's no competition in like Jump Toronto. And I'm like, that's in September. Like, we just started. There's no dances being morphed, formed, like anything that's happening at that point in time. So it's like we have all that time. We have our Canadian competitions because a lot of them, I think some cities have switched where like a Buffalo is sooner than it
Mm.
used to be, and none of the Canadian studios are going. And I was like, well, our bulk Canadian competitions are in end of March, April, and beginning of May. So it's like we're competing in Canada, and then our opportunity is
You gotta
Jump
wait,
Buffalo
boo.
to go. Like that's it. So, and I was like, and that's like the one and only time that you're seeing our work that we've basically had a whole season. Like, we're at the
Mm.
top of our caliber at that point in May. That's when you're seeing it. And that's when we're supposed to be at our best, unless we're going to nationals. You know what I mean? So it's like we've had all season to perfect dances to da 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 da, and that's when you're seeing it is in May. And they're just like, and you guys clean up no matter what it is. Like, every Canadian studio cleans up. And I'm like, A, that's our only opportunity to see American studios, but B, like, we've had a whole season. Like, we're not getting a dance done and putting it on stage 2 weeks later. Like, that doesn't happen in
Mm.
Canada, whereas, like, people will get solos done and then put it on stage that weekend. I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. So
Mm.
it's just, it's a different mindset that Canadian studios have, and I think that they've all kind of got into that regiment of, like, we know, like, when the best time is to put a dance on stage, whereas, like, kids will pay for a $500 solo and put it on stage that next weekend. But I'm like, but what?
In the
You haven't
US,
I'm like, you haven't sat in that solo. Like, you haven't perfected it. You don't know, like, is it going to do well? And like, I've had moms come up to me and be like, oh, she's competed this 3 times. We don't like it, so she's going to get a new solo. And I'm like, in the middle of the season, like that happens a lot in the US, where it's like, no, we get our solos set, like, or we know what we're going to get. And then you get that solo, and that's the solo you compete all season. Like, there's no, like, unless
that's
there's like, oh, you know.
That's really interesting you said that, because I can see the pros in doing that, what we're doing, but I also see the cons in it, because what you just said about, like, if it's not working, the solo, it's kind of just like, I guess in a way the States is it's very high energy, very, like, you know, very very commercial work mindset, I would say, more so than like, which I think is a struggle that Canadians have, because then what do you do after dance if it's so set in stone, right? Yeah. But I think there is some sort of pro to doing that, because I like what I was thinking, like growing up with you guys, I loved watching. My favorite dance, and I know it's yours too, is open hands. Like, I still watch it, and like I get goosebumps for how good it was. I always watch, I think it's the jump buffalo, like that was the best one with the cameras. So good. But like, I guess asking you, because especially with Joanne's, like, she was clean. Like, I remember when I came to, I think in my grade 12 year, I came to move, and I was watching you guys, and like I was just sitting watching you guys clean. I'm like, oh my god, this is intense. But how do you find your own groove and style outside of leaving a studio like Joanne's? And like, what was that journey for you?
I would have to say they give you the room, like, especially when you get older, they give you the room to find your own voice within, like, having, like, the group. And I always say, and all of the girls will say that, our group was very, very special. With, like, who we grew up with, the dancers that we ended with, and the dances that we had, I think shaped us, especially our last 2 years, shaped our mindset, and shaped, like, the girls that we were going to be leaving as 18-year-olds, like, leaving that space and going into, like, the bigger space of the world, like, not just studio life, but just the world. And I have to say that, like, yes, they're your teachers at the end of the day, but they're not, like, and they're shaping your minds, because you're growing up with them, you know what I mean? Like, you start when you're, like, I had my first solo when I was 7, and I left there when I was 18, you know? So they're shaping a young mind, and they're not going to lead you astray into something they're going to put you in harm's way, or they're not going to lead you into, like, the world that is great. But with that, they give you the opportunities, and I think that they're great at picking songs, picking the genres of dance for you that is going to do well. Like, I give the example for Nathan. Like, they knew that he was going to do well in hip hop solos, which, like, hip hop solos isn't really a thing, but like, he did really well in hip hop solos, so he got that all the time. You know what I mean? And like, for me, they know when it's time to move on from a choreographer. Like, I had Jesse as my jazz teacher for years, but as I got older, like, I matured, and they knew that they let go. So I now moved on to Dana and Joanne, you know? So it's like, they know the right process and the right timing for you. But with that, they'll work with you in the studio. Like, it's a very much not collaborative, but
it's not ego driven.
It's not ego driven. Oh no, there's a sign at Joanne's door, and it says, "Leave your ego at the door." Like,
that's so interesting.
Yeah, she's not
not the sign. I mean, yeah, it's funny having that sign at the door, but just, like, not to degrade what my experience was growing up, but like, that's different. What I experienced was way different. So I guess even, like, the beginning of the conversation, our brains were in two different places when I asked these questions, because it's just like,
yeah,
Vaughan and Brampton are two different places.
Again, it was, you have your tough times, you know, and
yeah, like, that's normal.
There's gonna be those spaces where you don't, like, just Joanne's era. They're the cleaning studio, you know what I mean? But like, and all the girls would
Wasn't
say
she
it,
teaching
like,
workshops on how to clean?
yeah. And I think I said that to Denise the other day. I was like, oh, I knew Joanne was legit when they asked her at Teacher Summit to do a seminar on cleaning. And she asked me to go in and was like, okay, Kyanna, like, we're going to go in and we're going to do a session on like how we clean our dances. So I literally was there and we did, I think we did open hands, and I started doing a section of it, and she started taking us through like what we do in the studio of cleaning. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 no. Like, this woman is legit. Like, like, people know her for like that. But at the end of the day, like, I think someone asked me, how does your group, after cleaning it down so much, how do you get the feeling and the emotion back into it? And she always would say, now that it's clean, throw it away. Which, like, is a total, how do you do that? You know?
Like, you just yelled at me.
Because you just literally, like, we clean the crap out of this dance where there's, like, no, like, emotion into it. But, again, your body is going to remember what they clean. Now you actually just have to emote. You know what I mean? Like, you have to just put that feeling back into it, and it'll happen, which it always did. There was always those moments where, and then sometimes it never worked. Like, sometimes it didn't work. And then sometimes, like, we'd go revamp in the studio and be like, okay, this wasn't the best time. How can we, and again, our video was our biggest thing. After a competition, we would go back and we'd sit in the lobby and watch the video. And that kind of was a part of our cleaning process. Yeah. We'd watch the video. If something was off, she'd pause it and be like, did you see that? Yes. Great. We'll go back. Did you see that? You know what I mean? So, like, that was kind of how we did our cleaning and everything like that. But they were the biggest advocates of, we want it clean, but we also want your emotions to be in it. We don't want you to be robots with it.
I think that's important, because I was kind of thinking of asking you. It's like, I think, again, I know I already asked the question, but it may be a different way of looking at it. It's just like, you're in that world of looking at yourself, you know, like cleaning. Yes, it's important, but like, it kind of takes away from the humanness of why you're even dancing in the first place.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I guess we can kind of keep on the track of dance, but I think just being more connected and asking for like your experiences, like, how do you ground yourself when you finding who you are as a dancer, but then, you know, sometimes I watch videos of myself dancing and I'm picking, but I'm not looking at it at a full, being like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I'm not going on, no one's judging me. Like,
yeah.
It's natural, people do, but like, just how do you get out of that mindset? Because again, like she said, whatever we talk about, throw it away. You have to throw it away. So like, how do you do that, and how do you navigate that?
I think that, like, it was a hard shift for me coming out of the competition world, because that's what you do. You learn a dance to then compete it and get judged, right? Nobody's judging you. Like, you're your hardest critic. I'm my worst judge. You know what I mean? And again, just like you say, like, I'll look at videos and be like, I don't want to post it. But why? Yeah. You know, like, but why? Nobody's gonna judge you on it. Like, people are, what, are you judging? Falling out. Exactly. Like, you're doing it for you. You're posting it because you want to show people that you love what you do. You know what I mean? Like, stop being your worst critic. And I've had to break that down because I've been judged my whole life. You know what I mean? Like, we get judged for a certain part for a score.
Good and bad.
For good and bad, of course. Yeah. But in that aspect for dancing, like, we get judged for a score, and if you don't get that score, you're not good. But no, you are good, you know? No matter what, if you get the double platinum, triple, whatever, or if you get a gold, like, you're still good, because also that goes back into, you don't know what they're looking at the other side of the table. You could have someone that's going to score you a 99 and someone that's going to score you an 87. You still did the same dance. Someone didn't like it. Someone did, you know? So you're never going to know. And I've had to just be like, you're good. You're in this industry because you love it. That's like the core, like, root of it is, like, you're doing it because you love it. If you didn't love it, it would feel like it was a chore. And, like, again, of course, sometimes it does feel like it, but I always have to remind myself that, like, no, you chose to do this. Why did you choose to do this? Like, you chose it because you love it. And that's like the core reason. I sat my parents down and I said, I don't want to go to school for English or math or whatever. Like, I love this. I want to dance. I want to continue dancing, you know? So it's like, And they helped me find that path of, okay, we're going to do it the right way. And that was the way that I went into school. And then like the passion has never died. I still love what I do. I still love being educated, and I love educating within the industry of dance. So it's always kind of fallen back on the root of like why I love it, but then also like nobody's judging you. You can judge yourself,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, like it is what it is. Like people are gonna like it, people are not gonna like it, no matter what.
Do you dig deeper beyond the question? So you get to the point of like, why am I dancing? Because I love it. Okay, why do I love it? Has that ever?
Sometimes, there's sometimes that I do it. I think COVID was probably the biggest thing. I mean, everybody got questioned during COVID because nobody could do anything.
Yeah.
But it was the point of like,
Was that a self-reflection process of just who you are as a person?
that was honestly kind of, but it was more of like I got the itch of like, oh no no no, I want to get back to it. Like because I could it got taken away from me and I couldn't do it. It was more so of like I was ready. I wanted to get back to it. Like that was kind of where I was like, no 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 no. I've fallen back into it because there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this. My body hurts and da da da. And it was like there's moments that like in my career, like I'm in a class and I'm like, this is where I need to be. Like this is why I'm meant to do what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And then that always reminds me of like, okay, this is why I love it. This is why I want to do it. This is like the reasons that I'm here. This is why I'm in the rooms with the people that I'm in. Or I won't see a choreographer and then I'll see them on a job 2 years later and be like, okay, this is why I love it. This is why I
Yeah.
love working with the people that I do. You know what I mean? So
Interesting.
there's hills and valleys, but there's definitely moments that I have to be like, remind yourself why you love it, kind of thing.
Yeah. Do you think that you got to the place you got moving forward with that because you had the outside validation of it?
Outside validation,
Of like seeing the people like doing these things versus just like literally stripping
living
yourself
in
and
it.
then like, no, I love it and that's it. Like, did you need that externalness of it?
Um, kind of. But I would say like I always remember, and I think this goes back to like why my group was so special. And I would sometimes just like I love going back and watching old dance videos, and because it reminds me of like where I started, the people that I danced with, and the love that like we all had together in that unison and that moment. And I fell in love with dance here. Fell in love with dance like at my studio, being with the people that I am and with. I fell in love with it at that moment and in those cores. So that's why I always find myself like I'll come home and I'll just like throw in a DVD and like reminisce on those times because those are the times that like I didn't have outside crap that I was worrying about. I literally had to go
Yeah.
to school and go to dance, you know, and I always wanted to go to dance because I loved it and I loved where I was. I loved the people that I was with and everything like that. So it's like, okay, if I go back and I remind myself like what the root is and where I fell in love with it, then I'm like, okay, yes, you can still do this. Or like if I have a hard moment, I'll text in the group chat, we'll send something funny. You'll be like, remember when? And like those are the moments that I'm like, oh yes, the happy times. But like that was where like everything started for me and I can pull from those emotions and be like, okay, no, you can continue, you can keep going, you know?
Yeah. I asked you that because I've been obviously, I've shared with you a million times, I've been on this whole like spiritual, just really getting to the root of everything. And I found
Mm-hmm.
myself asking myself that question
Mm-hmm.
of like, why do I love it? And like, for some reason, I couldn't answer it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I really had to step away from that. And then obviously, that's what pulled me into like more of spirituality. Cause like, yeah, I'm a Gemini, I like jump in my mind. I'm trying to like add everything together. But it really did get to the point where I was just like, am I loving it for face value? Is it
Yeah.
truly what I love? You know, and like I do love to dance, but I've said it a million times, and you probably heard it before. If I just
Mm-hmm.
turn on the music in my room and dance around, I'm good for the day. Like I don't
Yeah.
need to go. Like I really got to the point where like I don't need to go to a dance class to let out my emotions. Like if I
Right.
need to let out my emotions, I'll go talk to the person.
Mm-hmm.
You know what
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I don't need it in that sense. So
Yeah.
like I just think about like what I've gone through in my life and what I've thought about and what I've done. And it's just like everything was great so far.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, I'm happy like this is the Daniel that I'm grown into. But then
Mm-hmm.
there's that underlyingness of being like, I love it. I love to do it? Do I love it to my core? You know,
Mm-hmm.
what do I love about it?
Yeah.
What's happening in dance that's actually attracting me to it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And like I did at one point get caught up in the destination I was going to because like the marker was always changing.
Yeah.
Am I going to
Yeah.
be a dancer? Oh, I'm going to be a dance teacher. Am I going to have my own studio? Am I going to do videography? Am I going to do video concept videos, like all
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
things? And it's just like I really got to the space of really understanding like it's not about, obviously it's not about the destination, it's about the journey.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
just like sometimes you need to look at the destination, and it's just like maybe dance for me is just the journey to whatever I need to get to. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that gets at me, but I think it would get at people to like what you just said. Like anytime you thought about dance, it's to my core, it's who I
Yeah.
am. And then like if you went through what I went through, you're just like, it's not really at my core. So like there's a slight relief off your shoulders, but at the same
Mm-hmm.
time you are mentally putting more on your plate, being like, what the fuck is it?
Yes.
What is it for? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And like I guess I was trying to pick at your brain, being like, do you know what it is, like who you are and what you're trying to get at with dance, I would say, you know?
Yeah.
Because, like, yes, you can get at being the producer. It's just like, what's that? Like, I guess my example would be like, I always wanted to choreograph.
Yeah.
What's choreography? And that's a leadership role. It's like, okay, in my
Right.
personality, in my DNA is leadership.
Is
Okay.
leadership. Yeah. I
You know what
guess
I mean?
like
So like I had to
you
strip
had to
all
get
the
to that
fluff to be
place.
like, okay, no,
Yeah.
it needs to be leadership. It will
Yeah.
probably take me back to dance for sure, but if people could just get in that mindset of just stripping back everything, because then
Mm-hmm.
it's will probably be easier for you to go step into a space. Like I'm not like fully getting back into dance, but like when I get back into it, I like stripped everything and I know literally who I am to a core now. You know, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
still overthink a trillion billion things, but just
Mm-hmm.
coming back to myself, being like,
Yeah.
no, I like this. This is how I like, not only how I like presenting myself, but this is literally
Mm-hmm.
how I present myself naturally, and
Yes.
how I'm aware how naturally I present myself. So it's like little things like that, being like, okay, what is it? So like
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, what's that for you?
Um, honestly, I not a control thing, but I like to strive of like what, and I don't think there's a final destination for me. For me, I think
I
it's,
know it could be a tough question to ask on the
yeah,
spot because like
yeah,
it took me a million years to get here, but like if you know if
hmm,
it's just like curiosity, I would say, to like think about.
yes. So for me, yeah, I don't think it's like in dance terms. Like I always had like a goal of like, okay, I want to tour, but now knowing like how, not how hard it is, but like the different hoops
The
you have
ways
to
to get
jump through.
there.
The way to get there is like not
Yeah,
a straight line. You know what I mean? And like
yeah.
being a dancer is not a straight line. Like there's going to be hills and valleys. There's going to be you're here, you're there, you're there, you're there. Like I'm not going to be in New York forever. You know what I mean? So I
Mm,
think it's kind of for me the what can I do next or what can I improve on more or I
mm,
didn't do well in this. How can I do it better the next time? And constantly learning. I think I just always want to continue to learn and never be stuck in one place and never be stuck knowing just one thing. For me, I think it's, I want to constantly have my mind going and constantly learning and meeting new people and being in different environments. And I think that's what keeps me going
mm.
mostly because me personally, as just like human, not a dancer, like I don't like just like being stuck, like doing, like like I say, I have 3 jobs when I'm in New York. I'm a person that always likes to be on the go. I can't sit still,
Mm.
sit at home. Like I can sit at home. I love being like I'm a homebody, but
When you have the chance to,
when I
you'll
have
sit.
to, when I have the chance, I'll sit. But I am a person that always likes to be on the go, always likes to be doing
Mm,
stuff, and it, if I'm not doing something, I'm like, okay, what can I be doing? What can I do next? What
mm,
can I do more of? Type of situation. So I think that goes into like me being a dancer. It's like, okay, I did that. What's the next thing? You know?
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess the next question would be like, what is your experience with spirituality? Like, what do you do on a daily basis to get back to Kyanna?
Yeah. My parents, they're
Mm,
probably like my home base. I mean, I grew up Catholic, but I feel like I'm an ambiguous Catholic now. It's like not
I
very
never heard that.
much.
What do you mean by ambiguous?
Like I'm not immersed into the church as much as I was when
Mm.
I was growing up. You know, I went to Catholic elementary school, and that was church on Sundays all the time.
Mm.
When I could, if dance got in the way or
Interesting. Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But that was just elementary, and then we went to Mayfield, so like that kind of dwindled back a little bit more,
Yeah.
and again, I still believe that there's a higher power, a higher being.
Mm.
What I believed in, like those core values are still there, but I don't frequent church as I did when I was younger, as often as I do. But I don't think that you need to be connected into a church, no matter if you're Catholic, Christian, no matter what. I don't feel like that you need to be connected church wise
To connect to
to
a
connect to a
higher
higher
being.
power or higher being, or
Mm.
believe what you need to believe in, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of like grounding me and remembering who I am, I think that comes from my parents. I mean, like, if I don't talk to them on a daily basis, it's once a week, or twice a week. They're kind of my outlet away from like
The
friends,
world.
the world, and everything like that. Because also they're not with me on a 24/7 basis, so that's kind of like, okay, how was your day? What was troubling? And then again, like if I was in a situation, okay, what can we do? What's the steps that you can, like, that I can take to get me in a better place? They're kind of like those stepping stones, those voices of higher knowledge, because they went through it before I did, So they're giving me, if I'm in a situation and they went through a situation, they know where to guide me, in to be in a better place, kind of thing. And I feel like for them, it's easy for me to just like word vomit, let loose all of the frustrations and things that I have onto them. Because sometimes I feel like if I do that with friends, like everybody's got their own crap that's going on, you know what I mean? And like sometimes I feel bad that like I'm unloading onto them when they have all their stuff going on. Whereas like my parents made me, they have to listen to me vent about random crap, you know what I mean? Um,
There's more of a commitment to you.
Oh yeah. So
That's
I
funny.
feel like it's just like easy just to like talk to them like about boys, about random crap that's going on, about a job that
Yeah.
I didn't get. Just like they don't know exactly what I'm going through, but like they can just be a sounding ear, and then like advice if they can put it in where they need to be.
Mm.
And I feel like they have kind of carried me. I mean, you're always going to have your girlfriends and the people that like you go to vent about random crap, but like the more deeper things and like life, I guess you could say like life things, I go to them about, because they're the ones that,
Mm.
I mean, they've lived life. They're still living life, but they're the ones that like had gone through their 20s and had done it all. So I kind of go to them for like the voices of, okay, this is a situation that I had. Did you have something similar, or how can you, or what is your advice on like where I should go or what I should do or how I should speak and in those type of situations. So I would say like
Yeah.
they're kind of like my grounding point of like
Yeah.
outside world type thing.
To the point of even having your parents that do that for you is great. I think with having that, it helps you learn about yourself, but
Hmm.
I don't know if you went through it or experienced it, like you've asked advice from maybe your parents or anybody else, and you've made a decision on something,
Hmm.
but you can tell that like the decision was great. Let's say it was like 90% effective, but like there's that
Hmm.
little 10% that's like could have been a little bit different. And I think that's what makes it hard, because then you need to go back to yourself and be like, okay, like this is the advice that someone gave me. This
Yeah.
is the advice that thing, and making it, translating it yourself
Yeah.
to what you need to do. And like taking what I just said, I think goes back into like my journey with like really understanding,
Hmm.
energies, and like, I told you I go to my Reiki girl, I do the astrology. It's like it's just really learning about a different perspective, but on a conscious level versus
Hmm.
going to a therapist. It's nothing wrong with that, but like
Yeah.
sometimes situations call for like just looking at it for what it is,
Hmm.
you know? And
Hmm.
like to your point, you dealt with people in the workspace of the dance competitions, and
Hmm.
you didn't want to take it personally. So for me, my experience with that is I would be exactly like you. Don't worry.
Hmm.
I do the exact same thing, but there's some part of me that I've tapped into that I'm
Hmm.
able to look at it and see it's actually coming from them, and
Yeah.
actually realizing and having that awareness of like feeling something like, oh, they're actually going through something,
Hmm.
you know, because then a situation like that where it's like, it's not about me, it's, you know, it's a good perspective to have, but then it could lead into a direction of, okay, if it's not this way, then I'm going this way, versus like, it's not this way or this way, what's happening? Let the universe do its thing. And I found so much comfort in like having that knowledge and wisdom to be like, oh wow. It just goes back to like having that knowledge and being like, okay, like I'm seeing it for a different way, like taking off the filter and the lens and being like, wow, you know, and like you know, everyone does their own thing and you know, they figure out the ways that they want to lead their life. But like, this is like the perspectives that I've gotten the last 3 years have been really helpful and really understanding myself. Because not only can I see things for what they are, I can actually step out of myself and be like, oh, this is not me, or this is me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it just goes back to like learning about who you are and just really getting to know who you are as a core. Because like, again, asking you with the dance stuff, like, why do you love it? What's the actual reason to loving it? You know, so it's been interesting, and it's like, it'd be nice to have more people learn about these things and these concepts, and like learn about it and then do whatever the fuck you want with it. Just like take what you have and like do your thing. But I guess following up with what I just said, like, have you dived into any of these concepts or done anything like that?
I haven't actually. I haven't tried to dive deep more into like outside of like what I would be, or not what I would be, but like who I am.
Energies in that way.
Energies that way. Like I know I'm a Taurus, and I know I'm a Taurus to a T, but on certain aspects of it, you know what I mean? So like in that way, like I know like my being and my personality and everything like that, but like to say, like to dive deeper into it and dive deeper in like what the meaning is, I haven't done that. To like just like figure that out for myself. Yeah.
But even to your point about like saying like you're a Taurus and like some things don't make sense. I think I've shared with you before, there's like 3 main signs that you have in your chart. You have your rising, you have your sun, and your moon. So your rising is how you're perceived as, your sun is who you are, personality, and then your moon is your core, your emotions, and just who you are to yourself. So like, do you know what your rising is?
I'm not sure which one is which, but I know I have Capricorn and Libra in my
like 3. So whatever that is, if it's Capricorn or Libra, when you're born into this life, the first day you come out, you're your rising sign energy. And then at the end of your lifetime, you become a Taurus fully. So it's like you're born under one energy and you're trying to learn to become that Taurus energy. So like that's why some, like when we were younger, we would look at horoscopes and like it wouldn't make sense sometimes. Some days it would. You know, it was a generalization. But then just taking what I just said, it's just a perspective of like just you're growing into become who you need to be. You know, so like yes, me saying astrology, this it's like sounds really nuanced, but it's literally just another language of life. You know what I mean? I think that's the most important part for people to get out of doing it and understanding it. You know, because like I'm gonna advocate for like people just getting into it and trying it. Like I grew up Catholic too. Like I do believe in that, but like I believe there's more to it versus what's set in stone, literally. What they wrote down. But you know what I mean? So I think just having that perspective really opens you up and gets you to really, I think just the goal with this, even like having this podcast is, I say culture, spirituality, and you. We talked about the first 2 and it's just like, okay, you, who you are. Not even just me asking you, it's like someone watching this being like, who are you? Like, what's you? You know, and it's daunting in a way because some people get to a point where they know who they are. And then it's like, they look here for who they are. And then they open the door and it's like, oh my God, like I'm walking into the world being who?
Yeah.
You know, and it's not going to happen right away where people are walking and they, you know, some people have it naturally. Some people are born and they just act a certain way. And I think that's it. And that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's just all about the perspectives and really getting to the core of you, you know? But anyways, Kyanna, thank you so much for joining me. This is the final one. Last but definitely not least. So thank you so much.